Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Overcoming Chronic Illness podcast. My name is Dr. Brian Rade, and I am a naturopathic doctor. And today I am joined by Caitlin Weeks. She goes by the handle Grass-Fed Girl on Instagram, and she talks all about the carnivore diet. She, I believe, has more of a penchant for helping folks who are dealing with Hashimoto's, this autoimmune thyroid condition. But from her posts that I've seen on her social media, I've been following her for a little while now. She talks about other topics as well. So I was happy that she agreed to be on the podcast because, as some listeners might know, or anyone who's been following me on social media for a little while now, might know that I did a full carnivore diet for a few months. Geez, I can't remember what year ago it was now, probably two or 3 years ago, anyways. And that was really helpful for my own health. I've since phased onto more of a meat-based diet, but I'm definitely drank the Kool-Aid, and I'm a big fan of a meat-based diet. It works really well for me. It's certainly not the best fit for everyone, but it's something that's been really helpful for me, and I've seen it help quite a number of my patients as well. So I have a lot of my own thoughts about the carnivore diet, but we'll see what Caitlin has to say today. And just, what is the relevance to folks dealing with complex chronic illness? Well, some of my patients dealing with complex chronic illness have really benefited from a full carnivore diet, or at least a meat-based diet. Again, not everyone, but a number of them have. And so I'm anxious to pick her brain a bit about just some of the ins and outs of the carnivore diet, maybe some tips, tricks, pitfalls, different things like that. Sounds like she has quite a lot of experience with it, both firsthand, and she has her own podcast as well. Blanking on the name right now. It's something like some type of carnivore podcast. I'll definitely link to it in the show notes below. But looking forward to picking her brain. So I'll bring her into the conversation in just a moment. Just a quick note, if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, please excuse the gash on my face. I had a little mishap at my kickboxing class last night. So hence me having a bloody gash on my face. And also on that lovely note, if you haven't yet had an opportunity or inclination to subscribe to my mailing list, please consider doing so. If you're listening to this on YouTube, the link is in the description below this episode. If you're listening to this on some podcast platform, it's it's the link to join is in the show notes below. By joining my mailing list, you are on my mailing list and hear about different events that are coming up, whether it's a live Q&A for me or different podcast episode releases that are coming up, or various other, just sometimes I'll just send out newsletters that where I talk about things that I'm excited about in practice, the things that are on the more cutting edge of my practice. And also, if you join my mailing list, you get instant complimentary access to the first two modules of my Overcoming Chronic Illness course. It's an 8-module course that's available for purchase, but you can access the first 2 modules for free. The introduction, which kind of gives the course overview, and then module number 2, which is all about mitochondrial dysfunction. Super, super important to understand that, to get a good sense of the underlying pathophysiology of complex chronic illness. But then also it can be a very important treatment adjunct by addressing the mitochondria, can help folks to get better quite a lot faster. The other modules revolve around things like digestive disorders, mold illness, chronic infections with Lyme and co-infections, heavy metals, methylation, function, et cetera, et cetera. So quite a few different topics in there. So if you'd like complimentary access to the first 2 modules, please consider signing up for the mailing list. I will leave it there. I'm going to pause the recording, and I'll be back in just a moment with Caitlin Weeks. All right, everyone. I'm back joined by Caitlin Weeks. Caitlin, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Me too. So Caitlin, in the intro, I mentioned you're, of course, a carnivore aficionado. But if you wouldn't mind sharing with us before I start picking your brain, just how did you get interested in the carnivore diet, and just maybe speaking a little bit to your experience yourself, and maybe by proxy with what you've seen in other folks who use the carnivore diet, please.
Sure. So, I probably, like many of your listeners, have had experience with autoimmune disease. And in about 2009 or 10, I was a personal trainer. I was doing all the things that we're supposed to do, running, eating mostly tofu, and I was, I was doing a lot of chronic cardio, but also I was doing a lot of weight training too. And I was in great shape on the outside. I looked great, but all of a sudden things started going haywire, and I had just run a 13-mile, half marathon. And I thought, oh, this is just the greatest. I'm in the greatest shape of my life. And then I got this elbow pain, and it was like there for 2 weeks and it just wouldn't go away. And I was like, this is strange. Like, I don't understand this. And then all of a sudden I just couldn't get out of bed in the morning, and I had to like hold the wall. I mean, it was just the most debilitating fatigue that you ever, I mean, it's nothing that even pregnancy or since I haven't even had it since. I mean, because it was like bone deep, even when you don't sleep when you have a kid, it's different. Like it doesn't hurt. Like this was like sleep deprivation that hurt, or, being so tired that it was like you hurt all over kind of thing. It was really strange. And all I could do was just go to work and then crawl into bed any moment that I could. And I was going to bed super early, like 6 o'clock at night. I mean, I was sleeping like 18 hours a day. I mean, it was all I could do. And when your personal trainer doesn't really look good to be like super tired and like
Not
sitting
so
down
much.
or holding the wall, or, and I mean, I was about 30, 32 when all this was kind of happening. And I went to the doctor. Of course, they said, oh, well, you're just getting older. And I was like, I don't know. That doesn't sound, this is,
Not at 32.
it's not the kind of older that, So I thought, well, I had actually run into a naturopathic doctor. She had a little office next door to the gym because I was living in San Francisco at the time. And, there's a naturopathic doctor on every corner. And so we had become friends. I had actually gone to her kind of marketing myself like, oh, I'm a trainer nearby, blah, blah, blah. So I went back to her and I said, hey, I got these labs done at my doctor. And she looked at them right away and she said, you have Hashimoto's. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, because like your thyroid runs your whole body. One of the main things that you need is thyroid hormone. So she gave me Nature Throid, I think, at the time. And within 2 weeks, I just started feeling 1,000 times better. I mean, I still wasn't myself, but I could not focus on sleeping all the time. I was just like, I mean, it would made a huge difference. And I was like, oh, this is so weird, like what a difference, just a hormone, that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so then after that, I kind of changed courses and I studied nutrition, and I got, really deep into it because I just was so floored that, I could do everything right and I could get so sick and so messed up, and, just kind of changed the course of my life. So
That's
and,
awesome. Change for the better. That's great. So how did that somehow segue into the carnivore world, or how did that transition
well,
happen?
yeah. I mean, along the way, I got better. There were some other people at my nutrition school. I started going to, it's called Bauman College in Berkeley, California. And I met some other people there that were into the paleo diet. And so I learned about paleo. I went to Datis Kardashian's workshops and,
Mhm.
things like that. And then I met over time, just got more into keto. I started thinking, carbs are really not working for me because I had a lot of problems with, that the reason I went so heavy into the personal training and all that was because I have a history of being overweight and everything. So I was just like, oh, to work out as hard as I can and diet as hard as I can because I don't want to be, fat like my family or whatever, So then, I got better on paleo. I got better on keto. I felt a lot better. I felt like I was healing a lot of things. But I still had a lot of bloating, and just my digestion was never like, I didn't have any pain anymore. Nothing really, my skin is good, but really my digestion just never quite got better. I was always just bloated. And so another friend later on, she said, try carnivore just for like a month. And I was like, you're crazy. I'm not doing that. I'd heard of it a couple times,
Mm-hmm.
but I was just like, I'm not doing that. She's like, just do it for 30 days. You can do anything for 30 days. And she's like, it might really help you. And I was like, oh, I'm not doing it right now. And then I waited till a time when I wasn't going on any trips or anything. I was like, when I could stay home and I could cook. And, so I did, it took me about 4 months to really get started. And then when I did it for 30 days, I mean, within 24 hours, I lost the bloating, and I was like, what? This is crazy. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my sugar cravings, I still had a lot of sugar cravings on keto and stuff, because there's keto treats, and I always loved dark chocolate and stuff. And that went away. And my blood sugar had gotten better, because I used to, when I was a personal trainer, I used to carry snacks all the time in my bag. And I was always having these terrible hangry meltdowns, and then, so that got better and better. But this was the first time I just could go for many, many hours without thinking about eating. It was a new level of satiety. And I could just focus on other things, because food had just ruled my life, and for so long. And so, but this was the first time, this year was actually the first time my thyroid antibodies went to under 30. So now we're 23. They were 600. When I first got sick, they were over 600. I don't remember the number, but they were 600 or 600 plus.
Mm-hmm.
And then now they were 23 this year. And I was pretty blown away by that. That's the first time I've seen that. So, and that was just in the spring that I got those numbers. So
That's great. Wonderful. Yeah, no, I was just saying that's great. Sorry, I wasn't meaning to interrupt there,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's wonderful. So obviously you're convinced that or you've seen the proof in the pudding in terms of your own results, that it's obviously been a very helpful diet for you. Are you yourself still following, are you following a 100% strict carnivore diet, or are you doing more of a meat-based diet, or what's been the long-term plan for you?
I mean, I've done it for 5 years now. So, I have definitely tried to see what I could incorporate and but during that time, I did this diet for about 18 months, really strict. Then I got pregnant and I had a baby. So I gained 50 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And then, after you're pregnant, then you're breastfeeding. And then, so actually just stopped breastfeeding about in September. So no, this is September, in August.
Mm-hmm.
So about mid-August, I quit breastfeeding so I breastfed for 3 years. So as you know, that has a downstream effect on everything in your body. And I was able to make milk and everything. People think, oh, you have to have carbs and all this crap, but that's not true. I mean, maybe for some people, but for me, I had no problem as long as I kept my electrolytes up, and, stayed hydrated, whatever that means to you. But for me, I just say that so people will make sure that that's a part of their plan, because, a lot of people, I think that is their problem. And maybe some people need carbs. And, when you're pregnant or when you're breastfeeding, it's a very hard time. You're very sleep deprived, you're all messed up. So, don't be too hard on yourself, about your diet or whatever. But I just found that for me, being as strict as I could, helped me slim down after, and it helped me sleep better, and, just all the things with my moods and everything, just trying to get back. Now I definitely, I can go off the rails with some cheese big time. So I can gain weight. I do think, a lot of people with Hashimoto's have dairy sensitivity, maybe more than other people. So I can gain weight really easily if I eat cheese. And I found that it's best if I just don't eat any cheese. Um, and then, there's some vegetables that are like, I made a video recently, like it was like cucumbers, avocados, lemons, limes, uh, I can't remember all of them, but like basically the ones that Paul Saladino, says it, but the low carb fruits, so those ones are pretty much like squash, zucchini. I can eat those things. They don't really seem to affect me too much. But dairy is the worst. And that is something allowed on the carnivore diet. So like for me, it's better for me if I eat an avocado or a guacamole, for example, than if I eat a whole bunch of sour cream and cheese. Does that make sense? So I guess I'd say more about like a paleo carnivore or something, but I really just feel my best just eating meat. And so, and now I'm really trying to lose weight and get down to the lowest weight that I was before I got pregnant. So I would like to, and I find that if I just eat meat, even if it's chicken or fish or whatever, which I like chicken wings, but I don't really care about fish anymore. It's weird as I used to like fish. I mean, I'll eat it, but it's just not like something I crave.
Mm-hmm.
And so as long as I eat any kind of protein, no dairy, I will lose weight. But if I eat anything else, I kind of like bloat up and and just get off track. So I have found a couple vegetables, but it's just kind of like I don't care about it either way. So it's not something I need to have. Maybe once over the summer I was like, oh, I'll eat some cucumbers or I'll eat some zucchinis just because it's like in season, but really nothing I cared about. The only thing I really crave is like ribeyes and I love scrambled eggs, but I've even done an egg elimination lately just because it seems like, I don't know, maybe have an egg sensitivity to the whites or something. And if I eat too many whites, I can tell something's going on. But so on and on and on.
Yeah, well, it's just kind of that ongoing experimentation process of, like what works and what doesn't. And I guess one question I have for you, and whether, it's just, whether it's your just based on your opinion or if it's based on any scientific literature or what you've heard from other experts out there in this. I'm just wondering, like, if a person listening to this is thinking like, yeah, like I eat an omnivorous diet and I feel pretty good. If it's just a random person listening to the podcast, like I'm eating my veggies and this and that, and like, oh my gosh, like it just sounds like you're on this really, really restricted diet. Like, and in my own personal practice, I've had some patients where several patients to date where like carnivore has just been miraculous for them. It's been like the only thing that's shifted things. And many other patients where like they found it to be helpful. They feel better eating that way. I'm just wondering, why do you think some folks just seem to be so reactive to so many things? Obviously some people can just completely, as best we can tell anyways, like thrive eating omnivorously. So clearly it's not just, built into human DNA that we're only supposed to eat meat. But why do you think some folks are just so reactive to things where, meat alone seems to be the main thing that they can tolerate?
Well, I mean, I think, you're in a great position because you are a naturopathic doctor, so you can like do all these tests on yourself or figure out things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I spent thousands and thousands on functional medicine testing and stuff, and it was just like I came up with basically nothing. It was always like, you're fine, there's nothing really wrong with you. And it's just like, you know what, it was like, F that. I'm like so sick of it. Like I spent all this money and you've told me nothing, and so I just kind of got like fed up with that kind of thing. And so I think it just depends on how sick you were. Like I was like, I had the nail in the, the railroad spike, and I was just like, see how hard you can hit it, like how far can you drive yourself down into the ground,
Mm-hmm.
like I didn't take the hints, that were dropped along the way. I just kept pushing myself further down the
Mm-hmm.
hole,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's what, our conventional system does to you, it's just like, oh well, you're not feeling good, well take some birth control pills. Oh, you're not feeling good, well just run harder, try harder. And so we have this like stress culture that's just like go go go. So I guess it just depends on where you're starting out from, and if you we have so many things that we're putting in our bodies, on our bodies, around our bodies. I switched all my personal care over the years to be natural stuff and, makeup and lotions and, even in my home, trying to not use products that, like Lysol and things like that. I don't use any of that stuff. Try to open my windows every single day and, I'll get outside a whole lot and walk around the block and, go in the pool, go in the lake all the time. I mean, of course, I know the pool has chemicals too, but
Mhm.
sometimes you can find a saltwater pool.
Mhm.
But yeah, just lowering your toxic load, you have to it's not just one thing. I mean, eat your food, you have to do the best you can. I mean, we can't all afford organic and everything, but it's just, and then changing my lifestyle too. Like I used to work in the gym, like I said, and I had a crazy schedule. I had to get up at 5 a.m. and I quit doing all that. I stopped and I started working from home and, sleeping in and just letting myself wake up naturally. And now I'm pretty much like a stay-at-home mom. I do a lot of, internet stuff, but um, sleeping in with my baby is like, the funnest thing. We wake up whenever and then we go to the playground and, stuff like that. So, I mean, he's 3 now and, just changing my lifestyle. I mean, I'm really lucky. Like my husband works really hard and, we do balance it out. And like, I've worked less since I've had a baby. I used to work a lot more and, so I mean, you have to look at every aspect. If you hate your job, you have to change it up and see if you can try, working from home or getting a different role or, going back to school for something else. Or, I mean, you really have to change everything. If you have autoimmune disease, it's going to take everything in the kitchen sink, because whatever got you there is not going to get you out of it.
That's fair. Yeah. So for folks listening, they're thinking like, yeah, I've thought about the carnivore diet, but I have, X, Y, or Z concern about it. Um, what in your experience, from what you've seen with other folks that or folks messaging you or posting comments on your social media or whatever it happens to be, like what are some of the maybe one or two or three top reasons that folks give for not wanting to try the carnivore diet, and what would your kind of rebuttal or response be to like kind of some of those top one or two or three reasons why folks have some reservations about trying it?
I mean, I guess mostly it's boredom or and I mean, with boredom, so it was either be boredom or that they think it's going to make them unhealthy, like give them high cholesterol or something like that. So those are the two that kind of like pop up to me. But with boredom, I think, you learn how to cook different cuts. You learn how to, you're also less hungry. So you're not like you're just not eating as often or as you still eat a lot, but it just takes that focus away from all these complicated dishes with all these ingredients. And, a lot of us are following that kind of a diet because we think it's going to make us healthier. But, and the simplicity makes your life more simple because you just have a bunch of frozen meat in your freezer and, you throw it in the sink before in the morning. And then by lunch, it's time to, it's thawed out or something. So, I mean, it's just the simplicity, the lack of, you don't have to make so many decisions. And if you're not really hungry, then, meat doesn't sound good unless you're really hungry. So you got to kind of wait until meat sounds good because that will tell you that you're hungry, So I think boredom is a big one. And then cholesterol, people just, they misheard all these hypotheses about cholesterol our whole lives. And, cholesterol is actually a healing substance. And what we eat doesn't really, our bodies make cholesterol anyway. And, a sign of high cholesterol is that you have inflammation in your body. You have a site where your body's making more. Like at one time, my cholesterol was over 300 because my thyroid was unregulated. And as soon as I got on thyroid medication, it went down to like, 210 or something. So it was like, okay, it's a sign that something is wrong. So it's making more, it's running to a site to heal in your body. So I think just you study it more if that's really a legitimate concern. Like, don't just echo it, actually look into it and see, like, that the whole thing with Ansel Keys, and he's the one who came up with that and making us fear fat. And, if you really look into it, you'll see all the holes that are in that theory. And you'll be like, you know what? People have been eating meat for millions of years, and it's the whole reason we're still here today. So how can an super old food be causing new diseases?
There's a lot of compelling questions, and like as you mentioned, Paul Saladino, folks listening, he has his handle is the Carnivore MD, or at least that was his handle. But anyways, he's fairly prolific on social media, has his own podcast as well. And yeah, like just listening to some of his interviews with like various folks, and I particularly like when he chats with Dave Feldman, who like just really kind of gets into the weeds of like, yeah, what does the research literature actually say about the relative risks of cardiovascular disease when, your LDL is going up, but, in the absence of, inflammation markers and this, that, and the other thing. Like it's really compelling. And like just going through naturopathic medical school, practicing for probably about 10 years before the carnivore diet really came and like fell on my lap. It's like, oh, like just I never heard any dialogue around it. It was just like, oh yeah, like just cholesterol bad, end of story, and that's all there is to it. So yeah, it's definitely something worth having a conversation about, I think. And there's more to the story than that. In terms of side effects of the carnivore diet, are there kind of or suspected or maybe expected or presumed is the word I'm looking for, presumed side effects? I know in my own practice, if I mention the carnivore diet, like one of the biggest concerns is longer term, like, yeah, what's it going to do to my cholesterol and whatnot? But I know one of the bigger concerns is like, is it going to have a constipating effect? Just wondering if there are certain sort of more like immediate health concerns, whether it's constipation or feeling tired, or I don't know. What are some of those concerns that you hear about from folks when they're having some hesitation about trying the carnivore diet? And what would your response be to those concerns?
I mean, similarly to keto, you will probably get some sort of keto flu reaction. That should be sugar withdrawals. You can you can lose a lot of electrolytes. So taking your electrolyte, like more so when I did keto, I didn't really take electrolytes seriously. But when I started carnivore, I really did. I used to just take my finger, stick it in a bowl of salt and just lick it. And I do that several times a day, and that helped a lot. And then now I take like pre-made electrolytes. So, I mean, I think electrolytes will solve a lot of your problems, especially with tiredness and stuff in the first week or two. You will have more so than constipation. I think most people have diarrhea,
Mm-hmm.
and that's because they increase their fat to really high or really quickly. And so your gallbladder and cannot keep up with that. So one thing to just be really careful of is melted fat. So like if there's fat left in the pan or something, just don't eat it at first, because you need to kind of ramp up slowly with your fat, because especially if you've had maybe some problems in the past. Like I know a long time ago, if I ate a whole can of coconut milk, for example, like if I made a smoothie or something, and I would just be like, oh, I'm gonna just drink the whole thing, I would like get like a terrible pain. And so it's kind of like, that's what I think of something like that. So you can try some digestive enzymes at first. You can try some ox bile. You could increase your HCl. But really, it's like the liquid fat. So if you do eat fat, like you could eat cold butter slices. I've heard that helps people rather than, and I mean, I found you don't really need to add a bunch of fat to your diet. I mean, I feel better when I don't add a lot of fat. I just eat the meat. I eat a lot of fatty meat, but I just kind of eat the meat and the way it comes. But yeah, if there's a lot of drippings in your pan and stuff, just don't eat those, because later on you can experiment, but just at first, give your body a little bit of runway to not, to adjust.
Yeah, those are good tips, and it's a reminder that I usually say this at the start of the podcast episodes, but nothing that we're saying should be construed as medical advice. This is all for informational purposes only. If you need medical advice, please ask your healthcare provider for that advice.
And yeah, I mean, one more thing, it's just, it's not for everyone. I mean, if you're feeling good on a mixed diet of some plants and some meat, and like I was doing paleo diet for many years. It was great. I mean, it helped me a lot. I was able to stabilize my blood sugar and all that, but and I was, fuller and just I felt really good. And maybe that's enough for some people. I do think that's a great place to start, and then if you find that you're like binging on sweet potatoes or honey or, then maybe you go a little further or if, it depends on if you have like, imbalances like a lot of people have UTIs or things that are sugar related. So it's like it
Mhm.
depends on what's going on with you as to what you need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very good point that it's not a one size fits all. And yeah, I've had some patients where they go carnivore and they feel really rotten, and but then they kind of do a modified carnivore and that works for them. Or I have some patients, not many, but some that do really really well on a vegan diet, and that's wonderful for them. So whatever works. But maybe it's
They're
debatable in
out of
terms.
here.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. They probably wouldn't have got to this point of the podcast episode, would be my guess. But well, Caitlin, I know we don't have a ton of time left because I know you've got a bit of a time crunch with your little one going to be on the way home pretty soon, and I need to get home to my little ones and not too long from now to be in time home in time for supper. So just before we wrap up, would you be able to share with listeners how they can find you on social media, whether you have any online offerings, courses, or way that you work with folks, or what? How can folks get in touch with you if they'd like to?
Yeah, that's my name on most social media is Grass Fed Girl. I'm on YouTube. I do a video there every week, and I'm on Instagram. I try to do a couple reels a week, and I have a carnivore ebook that I wrote. It's 182 pages, and it's carnivore30.info. So carnivore30.info. That's where people can. It's kind of a 30-day introduction to the carnivore diet. It's kind of a challenge for them to just do it and then, cut the excuses and just kind of get started. And, then you can always customize it to yourself, once you try it.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing that. I'll post the links to all of those in the show notes below. And thank you so much for joining me today. It was fun to pick your brain.
Thank you, Dr. Brian. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in to this episode of the Overcoming Chronic Illness podcast. We hope that you enjoyed it, and please stay tuned for the next one.